Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled, for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honourable members, the Honourable Maxi Cuffy MP, member for La Hoqueta Talparo, has requested leave of absence from sittings of the House for the month of March 2018. And the Honourable Shamfa Kujo MP, member for Tobago West, has requested leave of absence from sittings of the House during the period March 1st to March 12, 2018. The leave which the members seek is granted.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I have honor to lay the following papers. The report of the Auditor General of Trinidad and Tobago, the report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology for the year ended December 31st, 2010. The report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the Siparia Regional Corporation for the year ended September 30th, 2012. The report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the Police Complaints Authority for the years ended September 30th, 2015 and 2016. The report of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the progress of the proposals to restructure CLICO, British American and CLICO Investment Bank for the quarter ended December 31st, 2017. I beg to move that papers 1 to 4 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee.
Honourable members, the question is that papers 1 to 4 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, I have the honour to lay the following papers. Papers 6 and 7, the Administrative Report of the Port of Spain City Corporation for the periods October 2014 to September 2015 and October 2015 to September 2016. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honour to lay the following papers. Paper number 8, the ministerial response of the Ministry of Health to the 4th report of the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration on an inquiry into the prevalence of sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, amongst school students and inter-general services administered to treat STDs in Trinidad and Tobago. Paper number 9, the first ministerial response of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries to the 14th report of the Public Accounts Committee on the examination of the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year 2016 with specific reference to the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Reports from committees.
The member for Fitzgerald.
Madam Speaker, I have the honour to present the 9th report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on an examination of the Ministry of Public Utilities, follow up on the recommendations from PAAC's first and third reports and the corresponding ministerial responses, as well as the Ministry's statement of expenditure as at October 2017.
Prime Minister's questions. Urgent questions.
The member for Point Appeal.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. Based on Petrotrin's media release on February 28, 2018, indicating that a transition team was appointed to oversee the operations of Petrotrin, can the Minister state the compensation packages for each member of this team?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on February 28, Petrotrin issued a release which stated that apart from its president, Mr. Fitzgerald, whose resignation became effective on that day, 4 other senior managers left, including the Vice President Exploration and Production, the Vice President Refining and Marketing, and the Vice President Human Resources, to clear the way for the transition. A transition team was announced. This team is expected to operate for between 3 to 6 months until a permanent remodeling of the company is achieved and the recruitment of new full-time leadership to transform the company into viability is completed. The compensation package for the transition team, Madam Speaker, has not as yet been finalized, but I can assure this House that it will be significantly less than what previously existed, as the transition team considers most of its work largely as public service.
Urupuch East.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the information. Could the Minister indicate whether or not it is the intention of Petrotrin that persons who are directors and a consultant can give instructions or directions to managers and employees of Petrotrin?
I will allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Given the information which has been provided to the House and taking into consideration that it has to do with restructuring of employees, could the Minister inform this House who will have the responsibility in dealing with HR and IR issues at Petrotrin?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
The person who has been assigned responsibilities for that is the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Reynold Ajuda Singh.
Supplemental member for Shogunas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Minister, you indicated that 4 of the senior managers left. Left, could you define that for me? Were they dismissed? Were they constructively dismissed? Is there a term severance or a voluntary separation on their part?
Madam Speaker, they were mutually agreed upon terms and conditions for their parting with the company.
Member for Urupuch West.
To the Minister of Education, with regard to reports indicating that the Ministry of Education intends to reduce the school feeding program by 4,000 meals, can the Minister indicate what agency was retained to conduct the scientific analysis that influenced this decision?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no agency was retained to do any scientific study with respect to the reduction of school meals by 4,000. Madam Speaker, I can add further that the decision to reduce meals was based on information received from principals in their schools who indicated that there were excess meals in their schools. Thank you.
Supplemental question, member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could the Honourable Minister indicate whether a means test is going to be utilized to determine the excess meals?
Minister of Education.
Madam Chairman, at present, Madam Speaker, at present, we are conducting a review of the entire program, and a means test might be one of the instruments that we'll use. I'm not at this point able to say whether this will be used or not. It will depend on the information that will come to us as we provide the necessary audit of this program. Thank you.
Supplemental, Member for Shogunasees.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, could you indicate, given that the data is now coming in, whether the means test will be effected for the new academic year in September 2018?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I just indicated to this House that we are in the process of conducting an audit into this whole program, and investigations are ongoing. At this point, I cannot divulge such information.
Member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 3 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. In light of the ruling of the Privy Council this week on the recent firing of former Petrotrin employee Vidya Devki Singh, can the Minister indicate why Petrotrin has not yet reported the fake oil scandal to the police?
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I have indicated to the nation and this House before, after an internal audit report and 2 reports by foreign consultants, School and GCA, which is Grafnicine and Associates, which indicated that there were discrepancies in the production of oil reported and sold in the Catskill field, Petrotrin, after due diligence, terminated a contract for the license with A&V Drilling and Workover Limited, and terminated the employment of one of its employees, Mr. Vidya Devki Singh. I have also indicated to this House that in November 2017, based on senior counsel advice, and let me repeat that, based on senior counsel advice, Petrotrin forwarded a copy of all its reports and findings to the Director of Public Prosecution for his determination.
Supplemental, Member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much to the Minister. Is the Minister aware that several months ago, AV Drilling removed all their equipment, including their on-site office, from the facility in Barrackpore?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much. Could the Minister state whether or not the government is contemplating taking any action to freeze the accounts of AV Drilling, as you did with SIS on the Beetham wastewater matter?
I also would not allow that as a supplemental question.
Questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we will be answering all of the oral questions. There are no written questions.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 91 to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago's outstanding debt with respect to loans and financing facilities to the government of the People's Republic of China as at the 31st of January 2018 is $2.229 billion. The details of these debts are as follows. For the construction of the National Academies, plural, for the performing arts, there are 2 loans. The outstanding balance on the first loan is $440,295,212, and the outstanding balance on the second loan, $180,835,533. With respect to the Couva Hospital, Children and Adult Facility and Training Facility, the outstanding balance on that financing facility is $511,500. With respect to the financing facility for the development of 6 sporting facilities, the outstanding balance on that facility is $545,157,619. and for the acquisition of one multi-purpose patrol vessel on trust, on credit as it were. The loan arrangement which we had to organize because they did not. The outstanding balance on that is $138,609,487, bringing a total. These are all TT dollars.
Excluding arrears.
Yes, excluding arrears, yes, of course. You're quite right. Thank you very much, Member for Aruka Maloney. These are all excluding arrears. And that was loans. We also have a claim which the former administration left for us as a gift when they canceled the aluminium project. And the current claim on that from CMEC, which is a state-owned company, China Machinery Engineering Company, the current claim against the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the capricious decision of the last government to simply cancel that project is $201 million US dollars, or almost 1.4 billion, which taxpayers of this country will have to treat with.
Does the Minister of Finance not think it irresponsible to use words like capricious with respect to the loan when that will affect the legality and issues before the courts?
I won't allow that.
And I didn't use it with respect to the loan. I used it with respect
Member
to
for Naparima.
Are there, the Minister of Finance, are there projects being contemplated in the pipeline that would require increased loans? And if so, in what areas?
I again will not allow that as supplemental. This is about total outstanding debts.
But it could increase.
Member for Naparima.
Question number 92 to the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Members, I would like to hear the Minister respond to the question.
Thank you very much once again, Madam Speaker. The People's Republic of China has been and continues to be a valued international partner in the development of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Founded on historical migratory ties, the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and China has strengthened since the establishment of diplomatic relations in June of 1974. I wish to recall that on September the 17th, 2015, the government adopted a new official policy framework in which China was identified as a country with which intensified relations would be pursued. In this regard, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has engaged at the highest levels with its Chinese counterpart. In 2016 and 2017, Trinidad and Tobago welcomed senior representatives of China's legislature and political advisory body, respectively, and 2 members of cabinet and that is of our cabinet, Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly participated in high-level events hosted by the government of China in 2017. Our political interaction also extends to regional and international fora, a recent example being my participation in the 2nd ministerial meeting of the Community of Latin American and the Caribbean States China Forum, which was held last month in Santiago, Chile. Madam Speaker, with a view to enhancing bilateral cooperation, a number of activities are being pursued in the short to medium term. Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, has been invited officially so to visit China. Separately, in 2013, His Excellency Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China, proposed the establishment of the Silk Road Economic Belt and 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, commonly known as the Belt and Road. This initiative is open to participation by all interested countries and advocates connectivity in policy, facilities and infrastructure, trade and finance. Under the initiative, the Chinese government has earmarked funds through the new Silk Road Fund and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and has backed major infrastructural projects in Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. In May of last year, 2017, China hosted the Belt and Road Forum in Beijing, China, to reveal its vision for the initiative and facilitate discussion among interested countries. Trinidad and Tobago participated in that event, that meeting, at a ministerial level. Over 60 countries were represented in the forum. This country's interest in the Belt and Road Initiative was reiterated during a bilateral meeting between His Excellency Wang Yi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, and myself in the margins of the CELAC China ministerial meeting, which was held recently in Chile. Madam Speaker, another area I'd like to focus on is one that took place in 2017, the framework and concession loan agreements in relation to the acquisition of a multi-purpose patrol vessel being used by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force were concluded. I wish to inform that negotiations are underway on a number of other bilateral agreements. Madam Speaker, there are a number, or rather numerous, collaborative initiatives in train and several under consideration. These include the export of fish products to China, financial services, sport exchange, and the use of available grant funding. Madam Speaker, finally, I wish to conclude by affirming that our relationship with the People's Republic of China remains robust and will continue apace to strengthen our relationship with that country. My thanks to you.
Supplemental member for Naparimo.
Has Trinidad and Tobago appointed an ambassador to China as yet? And if not, when will one be appointed?
One question at a time.
Take your time. Take your time.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Many thanks to you, Madam Speaker. We are well on our way to making appointments after due consideration to what is required and the availability of persons that fit what is required, and in short order, announcements would be made as regards initiatives of this nature. Thank you.
Supplemental member for Naparimo.
Does the minister not consider it irresponsible that, given the debts and given our warm relationships with China, that after 2 years, no ambassador has been appointed?
Member for Naparimo, I won't allow that question. I'll just remind you there's a standing order that governs questions. One, it is that it mustn't be argumentative or opinions. Please let that guide you. Member for Point of Peer, supplemental.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister, could the Minister state, based on his response, could he state when the Prime Minister will be visiting China?
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Many thanks to you, Madam Speaker. The answer is no. I cannot, with any greater level of specificity, other than that which was offered to this honourable House in the past. Thank you very much.
Member for Caroni Central.
Would the Minister clarify what Trinidad and Tobago has identified as its principal interest in the Silk Road project?
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Matters related to that question hopefully would be treated in a fulsome manner in the meeting which was mentioned earlier that is upcoming. Thank you.
Member for Naparimo.
Yes.
Member for Naparimo. Question number 93.
Question number 93 to the Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the rationale for determining areas for housing developments is based on the following. One, the demand for housing in particular areas as indicated by applicants in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's Home Application and Fulfillment System database. And two, the availability of land in the said areas.
Supplemental member for Oropouche East.
Thank you, Minister, for the very brief answer. Could the Minister indicate whether for this particular housing development there's the requisite EMA approvals, town and country approvals, and regional corporation approvals?
Minister of Housing and Urban Development.
Madam Speaker, there is outline approval by the Town and Country Department and the EMA approval. The last submission has been made, and we await EMA approval very shortly.
Supplemental, Member for Puchis.
Could the Minister also indicate, with regards to your answer, whether work continues at the several estates along the East-West Corridor to complete units for delivery, including the Edinburgh Towers in Shagwana, although not on the corridor?
Member, I will not allow such a wide range. If you're talking about the 8 towers in QREP, I'll allow your question with respect to that. So maybe you could rephrase the question. So it's
I will not. It's
okay, good. Thank you. Member for Orpuch West.
Question number 9-4 to the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
The answer to part A, the committee would interact with the private sector with the objective of advising on potential areas of development and projects and report back to the Prime Minister. Answer to part B, the members of the committee are serving on a voluntary basis. The answer to part C, there is no set end date for the lifespan of the committee. And the answer to part D, the expected outcome is that this body would interface on behalf of the government with the private sector in order to identify projects that the private sector is interested in and what the government can do to facilitate the implementation of these projects. The further outcome would be stimulation of the economy through increased private sector investment.
Supplemental, Member for Orpuchis.
Thank you very much. To the Prime Minister, would the Prime Minister indicate whether or not he believes it is a conflict of interest to have members of the private sector soliciting projects from other members of the private sector for government support, including financial support?
Minister of Finance.
Absolutely not. We think this is a very efficient, productive, and transparent method to identify private sector projects.
Member for Point-a-Pear, supplemental.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister state who are on this implementation committee?
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, although I did not come prepared to answer that, and that was answered already, asked and answered, I do have a newspaper report which indicates that the members are Christian Mute as chairman, Richard Young, Blair Ferguson, Shamir Ronnie Mohammed, and Gloria Jones. Shamir Ronnie Mohammed is chairman of Caribbean Airlines. Gloria Jones is from Tobago Tourism Sector. Richard Young is the chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center Company Limited. And Christian Mute needs no introduction.
Supplemental, Member for Orpuch East.
Honorable Prime Minister, are you aware that even among the names you are calling, there are members of the business community? The names you are calling, there are members there who are in business. Their businesses are linked, almost like a cartel. And that means that there's a conflict of interest in working on an implementation committee.
Firstly, Madam Speaker, I am speaking on behalf of the Prime Minister. I do not appreciate the insinuations of the Honourable Member opposite. I'm speaking on behalf of the Honourable Prime Minister, the head of the government. I see no conflict of interest whatsoever. I see no cartel. I see no interlocking anything, Madam Speaker.
Member for Orpuch West.
Number 95 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the costs associated with the development and launch of the WASA app for e-billing, rapid response, and repair is $133,400. This sum represents expenditure for the setting up and development of an Android and iOS compatible applications, along with the authority's costs for launching the WASA app. In keeping with the initiative to utilize in-house resources and contract less, this app was largely developed in-house, with the major external cost being the development of the iOS version of the app.
Supplemental question, member for Urupuch West.
Minister, to date, has WASA levied on any person's property for outstanding arrears?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Kamutu Mansinala.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, can you indicate how successful has this app been thus far in persons being able to report and have speedily repair to any leaks?
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, the WASA app has actually gotten a rating of 4.2 stars out of 5 on Global Play Store. So that's one good indication. We have had 1,680 people have downloaded the app so far, so that's another good indication. And people have been reporting leaks. 1,680 people have downloaded, and we have been having people reporting the leaks and fixing the leaks via the app.
Supplemental,
Can the Honorable Minister indicate how many subscribers are there to WASA for water? How many customers does WASA have?
I'm not going to allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Urupuch West.
Speaker, question number 96 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a feasibility study for the establishment of a port facility at Toko was conducted in 1990. The cost-benefit analysis was conducted as part of the feasibility study. The feasibility study, which included the cost-benefit analysis, was conducted by a consortium of consultants called the Seabridge team. The consortium included the following consultant: Newell Lewis Broadbridge Associates Limited, the architects; Planviron Limited, the planners; Leong and Partners, the engineers; Hart and Leonard Limited, the cost consultant; Lloyd Best, the economist; Pete Marwick, the account and management consultant. Madam Speaker, the basic findings of the 1990 Seabridge team remain the same today. The port was feasible then, and it is feasible now. The Toko port is also part of the government National Development Plan. Together with the proposed new first-class road to Toko, the port will open up the northeast quadrant of Trinidad for development, which we see as an important growth pole, and create opportunities for investment and economic activities, job creation, residential, commercial, and industrial development, including ecotourism. It will also improve the standard of living generated for residents of that part of Trinidad. The proposed Toko port will also reduce the journey time to and from Tobago by sea from 4 hours to 1 hour, which will be significant benefit to travelers and will create new linkages and connectivity between Trinidad and Tobago, especially in the area of domestic tourism. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Could you indicate what is the proposed financial arrangement to pay for this port?
Not going to allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Caroni East.
Minister, could you give an approximate cost for the construction of this port?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All the appropriate costs and so are being worked out at this point in time, and I'm unable to give a final cost at this time.
Member for Urupuch East.
Thank you very much. In naming the consultants, Minister, are you aware that the consultants hired by your ministry are also consultants being sued by your government for cartel behavior?
I'm not going to allow that question. Member for Point of Peer. Member for Samo Baratari.
Minister, could you indicate to us if there was ever any attempts?
Madam Speaker, I have.
Could you indicate to us if there were ever any attempts to construct this port? What year was it and what occurred?
Minister of Works and Transport.
Madam Speaker, the information that I have, I was asked, is based on the feasibility study. That is the information that I worked with. I can always forward that to the member for Sama Barrett area as requested.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Diego Martin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities, question 101.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, TSTT launched the B-Mobile brand in 2005, which is still in operations today. In November 2016, TSTT retired its other commercial brands, including Blink, Blink Mobile, Blink Vigilance, and consolidated all its products and services under one brand, B-Mobile. The associated cost of this consolidation was approximately $4.2 million.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Question 102 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, no decision has been taken by the Water and Sewage Authority to engage in its own brand of bottled water.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Question 104 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Madam Speaker, the Water and Sewage Authority, upon completion of a repair of a leak on a roadway, undertakes temporary restoration within 24 hours to 48 hours for primary and secondary roads to minimize disruption to traffic. Subsequently, permanent restoration is undertaken to re-establish the running surface by the authority using asphalt concrete consistent with standards as specified in the authority's technical standards, the completion of which is subject to budgetary constraints. In an attempt to address the backlog of roads to be repaired, WASA has been collaborating with the Ministry of Works and Transport and the regional corporations in the implementation of a program utilizing combined resources for the restoration of roads and potholes throughout the country. The program started with a pilot in Penal and has since been extended to Port of Spain and Chaguanas. The Ministry of Works and Transport and WASA are working with all regional corporations in the execution of this program. With respect to Tobago, a memorandum of agreement has been established with the Tobago House of Assembly for the Assembly to conduct permanent restoration of the roadways upon notification of completion of repairs of leaks by WASA.
Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance, statements by ministers, personal explanations, introduction of bills, motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister, public business, government business, bills, second reading.
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Valuation of Land Act, Chapter 5803, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 50, Section 1, I seek the leave of the House to debate together with this bill the Property Tax Amendment Bill 2018, which relates to the same subject.
Is this the wish of the House?
Aye.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that a bill. Oh, sorry.
I wish to rise on Standing Order 49.
Yeah. This is that the matter is sub judice?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to bring to your attention the matter of Devant Maraj against the Commissioner of Valuations and the Attorney General. This matter is CV 2017-01839. It is a live matter before the courts of this country. It started on May 19, 2017. Madam Speaker, it went before Justice Frank C. Prasad and subsequently the Court of Appeal. And it is currently a live matter before Justice Jacqueline Wilson. Madam Speaker, I will be failing in my duty if I do not bring this to the attention to you as Speaker. We recognize the principle of the separation of powers, and we recognize that we have a role of the legislature in the public interest. But we also recognize that there's a role for the judiciary, and this matter is, the litigant is awaiting judgment before the courts of this country. And we feel it is inappropriate at this point in time for us to engage in this debate.
Now, with regard to the submission, I call on either the Minister of Finance or the Attorney General to address this so that I can make a determination.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Anticipating this challenge from the member for Shogunas West or somebody else, the matter before the court in CV 2017-01839, Devant Maraj versus the Commissioner of Valuations and the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, concerns judicial review of the decision of the Commissioner of Valuations to require all property owners to complete a valuation report in accordance with the Act and return same with supporting documents to the Valuation Division of the Ministry of Finance for the calculation of the property's annual rental value. The matters before the House, the amendments to these two bills, have nothing to do with that whatsoever.
In fact, we have specifically not addressed the matter.
You could go up and say that.
I therefore rule it's not sub judice. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And mindful of the fact that we could be accused of trespassing on the jurisdiction of the court and interfering with the separation of powers, we were very careful to ensure that a specific matter that is awaiting a judicial decision is not the subject of these bills. We were very, very careful, being mindful of that. We were briefed by senior counsel, eminent senior counsel, with respect to that, and we left a certain section of the legislation severely alone because of the fact that it is at the core of the matter before the... Yeah, sure. So, Madam Speaker, let me continue with what I was saying. I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Valuation of Land Act, Chapter 5803, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the Property Tax Amendment Bill 2018 and the Valuation of Land Amendment Bill 2018, standing in my name, the members opposite have kindly agreed that they be read together, and I wish to thank you for that. Having to go through both of them would have been a little arduous. Madam Speaker, in 2009, and I wish to also thank the member for Aruka Maloney for the honourable member's negotiating skills. And I wish to thank the member for Pointe-a-Pierre for his magnanimity in agreeing to this. Now, in December 2009, Madam Speaker, there was a convolution of legislation governing the taxation of property in Trinidad and Tobago. At that time, the governing legislation regarding the taxation of property was the Land and Building Taxes Act, Chapter 7604, which had been enacted almost 90 years before that, in 1920. In addition, there was Part 5 of the Municipal Corporations Act 2504, which was brought into operation in 1996, and then the Valuation of Land Act Chapter 5803, which commenced in 1970, and the Taxes Exemption Act Chapter 7650, which came into force in 1902, 116 years ago. The result of this convolution of legislation was a system that was outdated, inefficient, and lacking in equity. Allow me to give you some examples of the inefficiency and equity in the previous system. The Land and Building Taxes Act governed Tobago and 9 municipal corporations in Trinidad, but excluded cities and boroughs. In light of this, assessment rules with information on valuation and taxation of property and required under the Land and Building Taxes Act were created for Tobago and the relevant municipal corporations. Part 5 of the Municipal Corporations Act, on the other hand, governed all the municipal corporations, including cities and boroughs, but excluded Tobago, given that Tobago is not covered by the Municipal Corporations Act, but has its own governing legislation in the Tobago House of Assembly Act, Chapter 2503. The information for valuation and taxation of property under the Municipal Corporations Act was located in house rate books, which, strangely, were only created for the cities and boroughs. The Valuation of Land Act, however, governed all the municipal corporations, including the regional corporations and the cities and boroughs and Tobago. So you had a whole series of acts, some covering Tobago, some not covering Tobago, some covering Trinidad, part of Trinidad, all of Trinidad, some covering corporations, some covering cities, some not covering cities and boroughs, and so on. And as I stand before you today, Madam Speaker, I am advised that there has never been a complete valuation rule created under the Valuation of Land Act, even though, as I said earlier, the Valuation of Land Act dates back to 1970. So we're talking, how many years is that? That's almost 50 years. There's never been a proper valuation rule completed for properties in Trinidad and Tobago under the Valuation of Land Act. With the eventual creation of house rate books for all municipal corporations, including cities and boroughs, since that was the aim of the Municipal Corporations Act, the Land and Building Taxes Act, and by extension, the assessment rules, were no longer applied to these corporations. So the end result was the Municipal Corporations Act governing Trinidad, but the Land and Building Taxes Act governing Tobago. This allowed for inequity. Let me explain. There were significant disparities in valuation dates and, by extension, valuation rates or values. We are told that the last global valuation of property in the 9 regional corporations, or their predecessors, the counties, and Tobago, was conducted in 1948, 60 years ago, or is that 70 years ago, if you do the math, 70 years ago. There were some valuations conducted in 1990, and in the boroughs, governed by the Municipal Corporations Act, there were some more recent valuations in 1975, in the case of Port of Spain, 2004, in the case of San Fernando, and 2008, in the case of Point Forte. But as you can see, this was a very incomplete, outdated, antiquated, and rather messy process. We are also advised that the valuations were not conducted as required. The councils under the city and boroughs conducted valuations at various times. But valuations done under the Land and Building Taxes Act were considerably behind those done by the councils. By that I mean they lagged behind. The result is a plethora of valuations for property in the country that does not reflect the true value of property. In my 2018 budget statement, I made the point that over the years, as property values increased, as reflected in various transactions, such as the sale, lease, development, disposal, and acquisitions generally, property taxes did not keep pace with these updated property values. And I indicated that the time has come when property owners must begin to contribute a share of these benefits to assist in financing the country's development. I can also tell you, Madam Speaker, that in addition to arbitrary valuation dates and rates, also differences in the rates themselves. Under the Land and Building Taxes Act, a flat tax rate was applied on land. The rate was $10 per acre on land in size from less than an acre to 10 acres, $15 per acre on the next 11 acres up to 100 acres of land, and $20 per acre or part thereof for land over 100 acres. On every building, a flat annual tax of 96 cents was applied, where the annual taxable value did not exceed $24. Alternatively, an annual tax rate of 7.5% was applied where the annual taxable value exceeded $24. I'm certain you can see, Madam Speaker, how confusing and arbitrary all of this is. The rate of tax was significantly different for properties under the Municipal Corporations Act. And this is not widely known, though people who live in these areas know this, but the country does not know. In Port of Spain, the tax rate for residential is 10%, for commercial is 10%, for industrial is 10%. San Fernando, it's 8% for residential, commercial, and industrial. In Arima, 10% tax on residential, 10% on commercial, but 6% on industrial, which is quite curious. In Point Fortin, it's 2% on residential, 2.5% on commercial, 6% on industrial, and 2% on agricultural. Again, a very curious series of figures that I'm just looking at it on the face of it. For agriculture to be taxed at the same rate as residential or close to the same rate as commercial properties in Point Fortin, it really doesn't make any sense. Shoguanas, the rate is 10% across the board, including 10% on agricultural land, which makes absolutely no sense as far as we are concerned on this side. Because there are certain things that you want to encourage. Another crucial element in respect of the legislation in 2009 was the basis on which land was valued, which differed among different pieces of legislation. Under the Land and Building Taxes Act, land carried a flat tax rate, which required no valuation. So it didn't matter where it was, what it was like, whether it was flat, whether it was mountainous, whether it was swampy. There was just a flat tax based on the size, not on the nature or location of the land. Valuation was done on buildings separately from land on an annual rental basis. Any building or machinery or plant housed in the building was valued at 6% of the present capital value. Under the Municipal Corporations Act, which deviated from the Land and Building Taxes Act, which both pieces existed side by side, land, building, and machinery and plant carried the term rateable heritament and were valued as one unit. So under the Municipal Corporation Act, they put everything together. Land, building, machinery, plant, called it a heritament and valued it as one unit. Under the Valuation of Land Act, you had separate valuations for land, building, and machinery and plant. The effect of this was that a house, for example, in one of the 9 municipal corporations would have been valued and taxed differently from one located in one of the cities or boroughs, although they could be almost identical in terms of size and the type of construction and so on. The taxes were also paid to 2 different entities. Land and building taxes were paid to the Board of Inland Revenue and municipal corporation taxes were paid to the corporations. It was against this backdrop of confusion that a decision was made to revamp the system and to bring into force a new regime for taxation of property in 2010. On that day, the Property Tax Act, Chapter 7604, and the amendments to the Valuation of Land Act came into force. The new regime put in place a central valuation system under the Valuation of Land Act, a central taxation system, and a central collection of tax under the Property Tax Act. And it's important to understand how the two pieces of legislation operate. The Valuation of Land Act gives the mechanism for the valuation of a property. The Property Tax Act gives the mechanism for the collection of tax on a property. They're two different things. In this regard, the Commission of Valuations is charged under the Valuation of Land Act with the responsibility of valuing all lands on an annual rental basis, and can also value land on a capital, site and improved value basis for the purpose of property tax. The Board of Inland Revenue, on the other hand, has the responsibility to assess the tax and collect the tax on property. The rates of tax are uniform based on property type. Residential 3%, commercial 5%, industrial plant and machinery housed in a building 6%, plant and machinery not in a building 3%, and agricultural 1%. So from what I've said before, you can see the logic now in the rates. Before it was completely arbitrary, with agricultural properties in Shogunas being taxed at 10%. Now all agricultural property throughout Trinidad and Tobago will be taxed at 1%. And in addition, residential at 3%, commercial at 5%, industrial at 6%, it all makes eminent sense. It's a graduated scale going up in terms of the economic value, and then going back down in terms of agriculture, which you want to encourage. Now, Madam Speaker, why should we amend these acts before us? Why are we doing what we are doing today? It is no secret that the country is experiencing some financial challenges. It is no secret. When land and building taxes were in force, the tax yielded in excess of $100 million per annum. And the waiver of this tax over the last 9 years has meant that the Treasury has foregone in excess of $1 billion in revenue over the last 9 years if the original land and building tax and municipal corporation acts had remained in place. Now let's look at the amendments themselves. The amendment bill to the Valuation of Land Act will make a number of amendments to rectify some deficiencies needed to implement the Act. I do not intend, Madam Speaker, to go into detail on every clause, since some of them are merely what I would call clean-up clauses, cleaning up the language and so on. So what I will look at, Madam Speaker, is the more salient amendments. Clause 1 of the bill is the short title, typical. Clause 2 is the interpretation section, again, typical clause in a bill of this nature. But what we are doing in Clause 6 is the creation, amendments to deal with the creation of a valuation role. As I indicated previously, there is no complete or proper valuation role in existence in Trinidad and Tobago today, and there has never been, not since ever, since the 1900s. The Valuation of Land Act under Section 6 provides that an owner of land is to provide a return of land to the Commission of Valuations. But the information requested in the present return is insufficient to allow the Commissioner to do an initial due diligence on the property to be valued. By way of example, the present return does not treat, if at all, with information on commercial and industrial building rental, nor does it deal with land-only rental. It was thought necessary there to revisit the format and contents of the return with a view to providing as much upfront information as possible to the Commissioner of Valuations. This would not prejudice the Commissioner from requesting further information, given that the Commissioner has the power to do that, to obtain information under Sections 27 and 29 of the Act. Clause 19, therefore, deletes the existing schedule and substitutes a new one. Clause 5 provides for amendments as it pertains to return. The clause provides that the Minister can amend the schedule by order. The fines for when a person willfully commits an offense as it relates to the return has been increased from $500 to $5,000. The next issue is the definition of the owner. In creating the valuation rule, determining the actual owner of the property is critical. This is information that must be in the role. The term owner is littered throughout the Valuation of Land Act and is also linked to the Property Tax Act. When you look at the two of them, however, it is found that the two pieces of legislation carry different definitions for owner. It is therefore necessary to amend Section 2 of the Valuation of Land Act by deleting the definition of owner and substituting a new definition so that the definition of owner in the two pieces of legislation would be in conformity with the Property Tax Act. That removes any ambiguity as to what an owner is. This amendment is found at Clause 3A4 of the Amendment Bill. With respect to the basis for valuation, the Valuation of Land Act provides definitions for land and various types of land, like industrial, commercial, and residential land. However, the Valuation of Land Act was silent on the treatment of condominiums, townhouses, and multiple owner commercial units, which do not fall into any definition, so that owners of condominiums, townhouses, and multiple owner commercial units could possibly have avoided paying the tax in the past. Clause 3C therefore amends Section 2 of the Valuation of Land Act by inserting a new subsection 5 to explain how a valuation could be conducted for townhouses and condominiums and multiple owner commercial units. The subsection deems buildings such as these as land for the purpose of liability tax. Clause 6 of the bill would seek to insert a new Section 7 which provides for the Commission of Valuations to record an annual rental value of land as the annual rental value determined on the basis of a return submitted under Section 6, that where the annual rental value is less than $18,000. Once the annual rental value is less than $18,000, this will reduce the burden on the Commissioner to dedicate resources to visiting lands for the purpose of conducting a valuation. Clause 8 of the bill will empower the Commission of Valuations to not only revalue land where it is believed to be overvalued, but also where it is undervalued. Clause 6 of the bill also inserts a new Clause 7A that would require the Commissioner, where that person is of the view that more than 50% of all lands in Trinidad and Tobago has been valued, to notify the Minister, who would by order then declare the valuations are in effect. This is very, very important, Madam Speaker. There are opinions, strong opinions too, that in their current configuration, there's a requirement that 100% of all properties in Trinidad and Tobago be valued first before collection of property tax begins. Now that's an untenable situation because new properties are constructed almost every day, so that you would never achieve 100% of all properties. But there's an interpretation, as I said, a strong one, that says the way the Property Tax Act and the Valuation of Land Act are currently worded, you must value 100% before you begin to collect property tax. That cannot work, and we have set the threshold now at 50%. So once 50% of properties in Trinidad and Tobago have been valued, the collection of property tax will be commenced by a notice published by the President. Section 9 of the Act provides for fresh valuations 5 years from the date of the last valuation. This Clause 7 of this amendment bill seeks to amend that section to allow the minister to set the date when fresh valuations would be conducted. And Madam Speaker, the owner of land is required, where there's a revaluation of land, to be notified of such. The Valuation of Land Act now provides only for notification by registered post, no other method of notification. Clause 8 allows for a different type of service of the bill, including personal delivery or by normal post to the owner rather than simply registered post, because we found registered post was very, very restrictive. Section 13.3 sets up the machinery for notice to have been deemed to have been served to persons residing outside of Trinidad and Tobago, because we will have property owners who don't live here but would be subject to tax. Objections. Clause 11 of the amendment bill will amend Section 19 of the Valuation of Land Act to list 6 additional areas of objection, to giving property owners more flexibility with respect to objecting to a valuation that could be heard by the Commission of Valuations. The list that is now being included was provided under the Property Tax Act, but appropriate amendments were not made to the Valuation of Land Act to allow conformity. On review, it was felt that matters like an objection on the basis that the annual rental value of any land appearing in the valuation roll is incorrect or unfair were best placed in the Valuation of Land Act, so that the process of objection can now take place under the Valuation of Land Act, because the Property Tax Act is simply an arithmetical calculation. Once the valuation is done on the Valuation of Land Act, you simply apply the percentage in the Property Tax Act. So we felt it was best to put the process for objection into the Valuation of Land Act, take it out of the Property Tax Act. So the list of objections under the Property Tax Act will now be found under the Valuation of Land Act. The Valuation Amendment Bill also introduces a new appeal process against decisions of the Commissioner for an objection. And this is part of the whole move, the worldwide movement towards alternative dispute resolution. Of course, persons would still have the right to go to court, but we felt we would introduce a form of alternative dispute resolution as an intermediate step. And the member for County Central will remember there's a similar provision in the procurement legislation to avoid a whole flood of matters going to the court. You try to sort them out before, and this is why we're introducing this appeal process. The bill also provides for recourse even if the Commissioner fails to determine an objection. As it now stands, the law allows for, yes, Madam Speaker, how much more time do we have?
59:24.
Another 20 minutes? Thank you very much. That's more than enough. The law as it now stands allows for appeals to the Tax Appeal Board and then the Court of Appeal. The first step in the new process is that there would be an extrajudicial appeal to a valuation tribunal, and then further appeals would go to the High Court. So this is an effort to remove a complete judicial process as the first step in an appeal. Let it go before a tribunal, which is not a superior court of record, and it is expected that 80 to 90% of the matters will be sorted out there. Clause 15 of the bill inserts a new Part 3A before Part 4 to introduce a tribunal and all the elements that go with a tribunal. The functions of the tribunal are not only to hear appeals in respect of valuations, but also include adjourning proceedings to allow parties to negotiate between themselves, and that is another worldwide movement. You have the movement towards alternative dispute resolution, away from litigation, and then you have the movement towards mediation, even removed from dispute resolution. So it allows adjournment of proceedings by the tribunal to allow parties to negotiate between themselves to arrive at amicable settlements of objections. That is Section 25G1A and B of the Valuation of Land Act. As I said, the thought process is to see if we can have the parties avoid litigation, which can be costly, time-consuming, and acrimonious. As the general tone of our court system espoused in the Civil Proceedings Rules 1998. For those of us who go to court sometimes, you will see the objective of the Civil Proceedings Rules is to avoid going to court, believe it or not. They actually say that. The objective of it is to try and encourage the parties to settle the differences. Many matters before our courts today are being guided towards mediation and negotiation of settlements. It's only after having done all of that and the parties fail to come to mutual agreement, there will be no choice but to litigate the matter, and then they can proceed to the High Court. Madam Speaker, there's a particular matter introduced in the public domain by members opposite regarding the role of the Minister of Finance and his influence over the work of the tribunal. The only thing I would wish to say is that even though under the new section 25A3, members of the tribunal will be appointed by the minister, under section 25G2 of the Valuation of Land Act, the minister will not be able to give directions to the tribunal of any kind in respect of any application or proceeding that may come before them. So all the minister does is appoints the tribunal. After that, the minister has no influence or power. And it is similar to the way we appoint the president. This parliament, the electoral college appoints the president. We in here have the ability to do that. But after the president is appointed, that is the end of that. We cannot direct the president. And that is exactly what is going to happen with this tribunal. Exactly the same. The minister simply appoints, and after that does not get involved. In light of the new Part 3, there is cause to provide for consequential amendments to the Act. The word appeal has been deleted and a new definition substituted, allowing for appeals to the tribunal to the High Court. The definition of tax appeal board has been deleted and replaced by a definition for valuation tribunal. Clause 12 of the bill inserts a new section, 23, to allow a person to appeal to the tribunal in the case where the commissioner fails to determine the objection 12 months after service of notice of objection on the commission of valuations. So we're putting in another protection for the public, where if the commissioner fails to treat with an objection, the tribunal can immediately start to treat with it after a 12-month period. Clause 16 of the bill seeks to amend Section 26 of the Valuation of Land Act to give the minister the power to prescribe fees by order for extracts from the roll that may be requested by any person, and these would be small fees. Section 27 of the Act empowers the Commissioner to obtain information for the purpose of the Valuation of Land Act. Clause 17 of the bill will amend Section 27 to allow the Commissioner to obtain information also for the purpose of the property tax. In obtaining the information, the Commissioner was empowered to require any person to attend and give evidence before him. Section 27.3 allowed any person appearing before the Commissioner to have his reasonable expenses paid out of public funds. This provision will be repealed under Clause 17. A new subsection 3 has been introduced to provide that the notice for attendance of witnesses before the Commission should be sent to the person directly or his agent or attorney or by registered post. Section 32 provides that any person who refuses to attend or give evidence is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000. Clause 18 would amend Section 32.2 to provide that a person shall not be convicted unless service of notice to attend is served not only personally, but can be served on his agent, attorney, or by registered post. We have some cleanup provisions, Madam Speaker, that I spoke to. I would just refer to some of them. Clause 3 deals with some definitions. Clause 4 realigns the type of valuations that could be done and makes it clear that the capital value of property is to be used only when necessary. Clause 9 amends Section 16 to delete the requirement to obtain the name of the person and postal address of the person in possession of land not being the owner, as this person is now captured in the definition of owner. With respect to the property tax, because we are dealing with the two together, the Property Tax Amendment Bill makes a number of amendments to rectify deficiencies. The bill has 25 clauses. Again, I would not speak in any great detail on several clauses. But let me start to deal with the more important ones. Exemptions. Section 16 of the Property Tax Act provides for the exemption of certain lands from taxation. Clause 6 of the bill will amend Section 16 in the following manner. By deleting the provision that exempts lands used for the purpose of education, philanthropy, or religion, since these are already provided for under paragraphs A and B. So it's just a duplication. It's not a deletion. We're just cleaning up some duplications. By deleting in paragraph D, the words an incorporated charitable institution and replacing with the words a charity exempted from corporation tax under the Corporation Tax Act for approved charitable purposes. This will make it consistent with modern law. By deleting paragraph F, substituting a new paragraph to include a reference to a list of statutory authorities and state enterprises that would be exempt from property tax. And by including the words "and occupied by" to ensure that the exemption only applies where tertiary institutions are in occupation, because you could have a private tertiary institution that is not being used as a school. And therefore, this is to ensure that it is being occupied and used for a school. With respect to assessments, Clause 3 inserts a new Section 3.2, which seeks to explain how assessments will be conducted for townhouses, condominiums, and multi-owner commercial accommodations. This is just following through from the changes that are going to be made to the Valuation of Land Act, just making sure the Property Tax Act will also provide for collection of tax for condominiums, multi-owner commercial accommodations, and townhouses, and so on. Clause 10 amends Section 21, which deals with objections to assessments. It provides that an objection to an assessment is required to be filed within 21 days after receipt of the notice of assessment, rather than after the tax becomes due and payable. With respect to the appeals process, this is now being moved to the Valuation of Land Act. So all of the references to appeal in the Property Tax Act have been removed and now placed in the Valuation of Land Act, where we believe they more properly belong. We have amended the words in subsection 3 of Section 22 in respect of an incorrect assessment, so it does not limit an objection only to the ground of an incorrect assessment. There may be many reasons why persons would object to an assessment of tax, but the way it was written, or is written now, is that you can only appeal an incorrect assessment. There will be other things that somebody may wish to object to. With respect to subsection 5, the Board of Inland Revenue will be able to serve notice of the final assessment where the objector refuses or neglects to furnish any particulars required of him or her in a particular time. This allows the BIR to look at the objection and confirm, reduce, or increase the tax. Clause 10 allows the owner who fails to file an objection within the time frame and has a reasonable excuse for not doing so to apply to the Board of Inland Revenue for an extension of time. So all of this is designed to give property owners as much flexibility as possible. Subsection 12 is also being amended to allow for the offsetting of an overpayment of property tax against other taxes owed to the state. The owner would also be entitled to a refund of property tax in the circumstances where there has been an overpayment. Subsection 13 is being amended to provide that the rate of interest on a refund being outstanding for more than 6 months would be at an interest rate of 6% rather than 1.2% per month. Again, being consistent with interest rates in the modern era. Clause 11 of the bill would repeal Section 22 of the Property Tax Act, which contained the grounds of objection. All of that is going into the Valuation of Land Act. liability to tax. Clause 5 of the bill, this is the Property Tax Amendment Bill, inserts a new section 15.2 to ensure that the fact that a building or other chattel creates a tax liability does not, by such liability, give the person liable to tax any legal entitlement to the land. You know what's happening now? People go and just pay the tax on land, and then they claim it. That's a loophole that we must plug, because it has been responsible for a lot of controversy, where people start to pay the tax on land and then say it belongs to them. Clause 4 of the bill amends Section 10 of the Property Tax Act, makes it clear that the tax is to be raised, levied, or collected every year from January 1st. Section 33 of the Property Tax Act is amended by Clause 17 to provide that the annual tax, as previously due and payable under the Act on the 31st of December, will now be due and payable on the 30th of September in every year. So no longer it will be due on the 31st of December, it will be due on the 30th of September to bring it in line with the financial year. Section 34 presently provides for the Board of Inland Revenue to send a notice of non-payment of tax to the owner should any tax be unpaid before the 15th of September in any year. Clause 18 of the bill will amend this to change the date from the 15th of September to the 15th of March, again consistent with the fact that taxes will now be due on the 1st of January. Section 34.3 allows for the increased tax of 10% and interest at a rate of 15% on tax that is not paid by March. However, the board can waive any penalty or interest where they consider it just and equitable to do so. Clause 22 of the bill will amend Section 38 to make it clear that the 10% increase in tax and interest of 15% must be paid after the 4-day statutory time limit for payment. Clause 9 of the bill will amend Section 20 of the Property Tax Act to provide for the amendment of the assessment rule by the Board of Inland Revenue where there is a change or variation in the information that is in possession of the Board of Inland Revenue in respect of land. Inland Revenue on its own comes into possession of information on land that may not be in another register, and they now would have the authority once it comes to their knowledge to make amendments. Where the rule has been amended and there results an overpayment of the tax due, the board shall now refund the owner within 60 days of the overpayment. Clause 12 of the bill will seek to amend Section 23 of the Property Tax Act, which deals with the deferral of tax. The amendment will delete the current section, replace it with a requirement that the relief granted will be valid for a period of 2 years and may be renewed if the conditions of the applicant remain unchanged. And what this means, and I'll give an example. If you have an elderly couple in Woodbrook who are impoverished and cannot pay the tax, they would get the exemption, but they may pass away, they may bequeath the property to another person who has the capacity to pay. So every 2 years you will review that situation to see if the owners or occupants are in the same position entitled to the waiver. And if they are, they continue to enjoy the waiver. If they are not, then the taxes will be imposed as they should be. Pardon? The what clause? Rahal clause? Only to see all kind of things, yes? Speaker, the rest of the bill is just clean up clauses. Madam Speaker, before I close, I think I have 5 minutes. I just want to read what is on the Ministry of Works website. You can go there. We have our property tax link. It's right up at the top.
Finance.
Sorry, Ministry of Finance. What did I say? Works. Oh my goodness. Why did I say that? I'm working too hard. The Ministry of Finance website. When you go there, you see a property tax link on the Ministry of Finance website. And it gives an example of a calculation where a property could rent for $3,000 per month. The annual rental value will be $36,000 per year. The annual taxable value will be $32,400 because you take out 10% for voids. And the annual property tax will be $32,000 by 3%, $972 per year, or $81 per month. I want to read this again. A property that would attract a rental of $3,000 per month will attract a property tax of $81 per month. Let me say that again. A property that would normally attract rental of $3,000 a month under this legislation will attract a property tax of $81 per month. Not $8,000, not $800,000. $81 per month is what your typical property owner will pay in property tax. I beg to move, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Valuation of Land Act, Chapter 5803, be now read a second time. Honourable members, you are reminded that leave has been granted for Bills 1 and 2 to be debated together. Member for Tabakit.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill is a very, very contentious one, extremely contentious. Every time you interfere with the property rights of people, anytime you interfere with the security zone in which people have found comfort, you are going to find that there is going to be a lot of reaction. And that reaction comes especially when people are not well informed and well educated about what we are debating. And despite the number of years that have elapsed and the manner in which this bill was rushed through at the end of 2009, still says that after 2.5 years, or 2 years, and the government wanting to bring this bill back, they have done a very poor job of educating the people and dealing with the contentious issue. Madam Speaker, I want to respond to a couple of points that the Minister is making. But first to say that the Minister, in one of his statements, had indicated that they intended to collect $503 million in taxes in 2017, which is about the time that they wanted. Well, in fact, in the final estimates of revenue for 2017, the government said they wanted to expected to collect $503 million in property taxes. Now, when you compare that with the $71,413,824 collected in the year 2009, it means to say that the objective of the government is really to collect 700% more in taxes in 2017. How is this 700% more that they intend to collect going to be spread? And who is going to bear this burden? Because the Minister made a very interesting comment towards the end of his speech when he said, he gave a good example, a proper example of a house valued at $36,972 a year calculate. But Minister, Madam Speaker, I have said in this Parliament, and I say again, the statistics in this country provided by the Board of Inland Revenue show that 76% of our population earn less than $6,000 a month. If 76% of our population earn less than $6,000 a month, and if you assume a person earning $6,000 a month has to pay an additional $972 a year in taxes, that amounts to quite an interesting sum for that person. For many persons sitting here in this Parliament, getting $50,000 a month as a salary, $81.
Honourable members, I remind you of the provisions of Standing Order 53. Please continue, Member.
$81 might not sound a lot to people, but when you consider that so many things have risen in this country, including the cost of living, the cost of transport, and when you consider that so many things that should have been provided by the state to the citizen, that the citizen is now not benefiting because of mismanagement and the poor management of the economy, like CDAP drugs and other things, and the citizen now has to pay for it, that $81 is a very important sum of money for people. Yeah, and the cumulative cost, for many persons, is a monthly cost. Madam Speaker, so you're looking at the government attempting to raise the amount collected by 700% for between 2009 and 2018. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister should also tell the people that this property tax and this attempt to collect 700% more than they collected in 2009 comes in the wake of all the taxes people pay now. The health surcharge tax, personal income taxes, corporate taxes which we know have risen, the business levy, the green fund tax, stamp duties, taxes at the pump. You remember we pay tax at the pump. But we pay stamp duties, we pay for death certificates, we pay for birth certificates, we pay online tax. It's a plethora of taxes that people pay in this country. And I will argue here today that people would not mind paying taxes if they got value for the money that they pay taxes. And that is where the crux of this debate will be. The minister also made reference towards the end of his speech to certain clauses in which he speaks about the matter of arrears and people having to pay interest, 15% interest and so on arrears. Well, if you owe, you have to pay. But the problem is this. How about the citizens and the business people in this country, the ordinary citizen who for years and years have not gotten their tax refunds, but they don't get interest on the tax refunds due to them? How about the citizens of this country who are waiting for their VAT refunds for months and years? They continue to pay overdraft interest on that in the banks, and yet they don't get back interest from the government because of the government's inefficiency and in the system and the process by which they should be getting their VAT returns on time. So it's good and well to speak, as he does, about the conditions and the provisions in the law, but let us look at from the other side of what the citizens are suffering, in fact, now. The minister also said that refunds are going to be made within 60 days. Madam Speaker, I would like to think that that's going to be real. But just to tell you about, again, refunds on personal income taxes and refunds on VAT and so on indicate that that is something that is a pie in the sky and will not be realized. But what recourse does the citizen have when the citizen doesn't get what is promised in the law? What recourse does the citizen have? Who is defending the citizen in this country? Who is defending the citizen in this country?
The UNC.
And that is important. And our role in the opposition here is to throw the stark reality in the eyes of the parliament and the people, that the law must not act on behalf of the government, the law must act also for the citizens. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's also going to be a lot of contention in the society as to how you calculate capital value, for example, of properties and so on. I can see a lot of things happening with respect to appeals, but there's a matter which the minister raised when he talked about his role in the appointment of the Valuation Tribunal. And the Honourable Minister indicated that his role stops when he appoints the members of the Valuation Tribunal. But I'd like to make reference in the Act to amend the Valuation of Land Act, 25B, which also gives the minister the power to suspend a member of the Valuation Tribunal from office on the ground of misbehavior or physical or mental incapacity or for cause. And it seems to me that that is the sole discretion of the minister.
Correct.
So if a member of the Valuation Tribunal says, you know, I'm not going to go along with what the political directorate expects of me and refuses to be independent, then the minister will step in. I mean, I don't want to throw this at the minister, but the minister has a reputation for firing people.
Yes.
Fired the governor of the central bank. Fired people at Petrotrin. He's now known as the fireman, you know, in the government.
You're the Prime Minister.
I have not fired anybody at Petrotrin. I'd like him to withdraw that, imputing improper motives.
All right. I withdraw and I continue.
Neither the governor.
I could withdraw and continue. I have no problem with that. Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the dispute here today is not whether taxes are required or not. If we are in government, we need taxes to run the country. If they are in the government, they need taxes to run the country. But the issue is about equity and fairness. And side side by side the efficiency with which tax dollars are spent in the interests of those who are called upon to pay taxes. That is where the issue is. And as much as there's an obligation to pay taxes, there's a responsibility on the part of the government to be efficient and give value to the people who are called upon to bear this burden. That is important, Madam Speaker. I remind the government that they lost an election on the Axe the Tax, and the people stood up, and it's going to happen again. And as I've asked before, I ask again, are people receiving value for their taxes being paid in this country? No. Madam Speaker, there's always going to be resistance to taxes, but the resistance will be more acute if people perceive that their taxes are being wasted. And the question looms large in this debate: what is the people's perception today of how their tax dollars are being spent? What is their perception today? If you can't get CDAP drugs, if you are like Mr. Shabat sitting in the San Fernando hospital and you cannot get a pacemaker right now, and you're staring death in the face, Mr. Minister of Health, if you cannot get simple things done, CT scans and what have you, Madam Speaker, people are going to resist, and they are going to get bold, and they are going to get aggressive in this country. And a lot of the anger and aggression that you see in the country now, from ordinary citizens, decent, peace-loving citizens, is coming from the frustrations that are being imposed by the incompetence of that government that sits from us. You see, a lot of people in this country perceive this property tax as a reactive tax, a tax that is meant to bleed the pockets of the people to fund incompetence, to fund the debts that are being created, and that $81 means nothing to a man who can buy a Mustang to drive. But $81 means a lot to a man who buys a B14 that is 10 years old to carry his children to school. You run into that. You run into that. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, people... Sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, people would rather see a proactive tax aligned to a specific human developmental objective. But again, what are the developmental objectives of this government? Had they had, like they said, a plan and developmental objectives, after 2 years in office, you would have seen a difference in the quality of life and in human development in Trinidad and Tobago. But you have not seen that. The population is becoming convinced that the property tax is an attempt to get money to pay for mismanagement. Correct. Mismanagement. Madam Speaker. So have we gotten a fair deal for the taxes we pay? How efficient are we in this country in spending our tax dollars? And I want to argue that generally the government has not been very efficient, as they should be, and as they claimed they were going to be when they campaigned in 2015 with respect to their spending and spending efficiency. You know, overall, when you look at things in this country and you do some assessment and you listen to the economists and so on, I make bold to state that we are perhaps spending...
I'm so sorry, I enjoy my friend's 48.1, Madam Speaker. I haven't heard a single clause referenced, and I don't think this is a wide perambulating debate, respectfully, as much as I enjoy my friend's contribution.
Again, I'm going to give you a little leeway to build your context, but please remember what the debate is about.
Madam Speaker, when you impose a tax on people, the tax is supposed to be used for the benefit of the people. I am demonstrating by the evidence before us, by the performance of the government, by the spending, that taxes are not being used for the benefit of the people. And if you are going to have people pay a property tax, people must be sure that this tax is going to be used. So, Madam Speaker, for example, how are we going? The government has given no indication how they are going to spend this tax. If you go, Madam Speaker, to a place like, if you go, Madam Speaker, to other countries, if you go, for example, to St. Catherine's, right? St. Catherine's. In St. Catherine's, you can see when they pay property tax, how much the city is going to use for what, and how much the region is going to use for what. St. Catherine's in Canada. Yeah. So you know what percentage is going to be used by the city for fire services, for roads, sidewalks, and drainage, for parks, for trees, recreation grounds, for general government, for transit, for libraries, for museums, for community planning and development, for street lighting, for the contribution to capital projects, senior citizen centers, and so on. But this government has not told us how they are going to use this tax. They made a general statement in saying that local government corporations are going to collect the taxes and the taxes are going to remain. But we haven't had before this parliament the reform of the local government legislation that will give effect to that.
Okay, so remember, as I said, I allowed you some leeway. We're not debating anything with local government taxes, local government reform, or anything like that. So I'm not going to allow you to go into there. Please continue. Keep to what is before us.
Madam Speaker, then I'm supposed to go clause 1, clause 2. Because you see, I am seeing, I don't know, I'm seeing this bill through the eyes of the people. Correct. That is the difference. I'm seeing the bill through the eyes of the people. You know, the Honourable Minister, he did his job well. He went through clause by clause. I responded to a couple of the statements he made regarding the clause. But I am here to see the bill through the eyes of... I respect what you are saying, Madam Speaker. And maybe sometime you might just tell me, well, I have to sit down. But I am telling you...
I'm not telling you to sit down. All right? I'm allowing you to debate. What I'm saying is you're not going into anything about local government reform and so on. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, therefore we would like to know, the citizens would like to know, how is this tax going to be used for the benefit of the people? How is this tax going to be used for the benefit of the people? Madam Speaker, it's not just the $81, you know, that the minister spoke about. You know, it is all the other taxes put together that really amounts to something. And remember, if they don't pay that $81, their properties will be subject to levy. And then it's a whole process they have to go through. And maybe even pay a lawyer to go and defend them and what have you, or consultant and so on. So it is not just about the $81. You have to look at it yeah, exactly. I'm just using the simplest example that the minister gave.
And therefore we have to report him.
Madam Speaker, you see, so we have to ask, where are these taxes going? You see, if you look at St. Catherine's, if you look at New York, there are published documents, Toronto, as to how their taxes are going to be used. But Madam Speaker, where in the regional corporations, if you take one regional corporation, which is supposed, given the expectation that they are going to be allowed to collect their taxes, right? Look at how do we know that these taxes, what's the guarantee that these taxes are going to be used at the level of the people in the corporations? How do we know that these taxes are going to be used there? I would like the government to give us some guarantee when they respond that these taxes are going to be distributed fairly across the regions and the taxes collected remain in the region. What is the assurance that the government is going to give in that regard so that people are going to be sure that they're going to benefit from the monies that are going to be collected? You see, Madam Speaker, it's one thing to collect money from the existing people and so on. And it's one thing to say I'm going to collect 7 times the amount I collected in 2009. But at the same time, it is not just about collecting from the existing households. You have to look at how you are going to raise tax revenue by improving the economy as a whole. So one of the things that the government should be focusing upon is how do you also increase business activity in the country, get more investments going in the country so that you get more taxes out of those businesses, or how do you increase housing in the country, in which there's a shortage of about 200,000 units, so that you get more taxes out of that. And if you tell me that this money that is being collected, or money that you collect now, is going to be used in a purposeful way so that you increase the revenue as a whole, I can understand that. Because then the regions can benefit from this. But I've seen no evidence, I see no promise as to how this money is going to be redistributed in the region, to the regional corporations. And that is something that bothers me very, very, very deeply. You see, why it bothers me, Madam Speaker, is that when we said we were going to pay health surcharge as a tax, one expected
that you go into a whole debate about various taxes. I think the point you have made with respect to tax being for the benefit of people and so on, I think that has been made. Please move on to your next point.
How are we going to value Atlantic LNG and Point Lisas companies?
Madam Speaker, you know, the tax is not only going to be paid by the small household, you know. There are hundreds of small businesses in this country that employ people. And without they employing people, the situation will be worse. And we need also to understand that they are also going to be called upon to pay these taxes. To what extent are these taxes going to be affordable? Is it going they're simply going to pass on these taxes, property taxes, to people now? Are rent values going to go up because people are going to pass on these to people who are renting in a situation where people, with a demand for 200,000 houses, where people are either sharing homes or renting homes? The burden is a very real one. You know, I am not arguing that we don't want taxes. I made that very clear at the beginning. I'm arguing about the efficiency with which taxes is being used, and also the additional burden, and can people bear the burden in the country? That is what I'm arguing. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the taxpayer wants to be sure that the taxes are being used for his or her benefit in the regions in which the taxes are collected. And that is something that we have to have some basis for telling us. You see, Madam Speaker, if I'm paying property taxes, and I live, for example, in the region of Kuva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation, 162,767 persons live there now. In the last survey done between 2009 and 2011, there were 43,095 dwelling units. Now, we have all that area of Point Lisas and so on, all the businesses and everything that come within the Kuva Tabaki. I would like to know from the Minister, by region, how much taxes he estimates will be collected from businesses, from commercial enterprises, industrial enterprises, and residential houses in the Kuva Tabaki Talparo Corporation. How much? Because I think it's important to know that. And I think that the citizens who are living in that area and who need benefits in that area need to know that, to know whether those taxes are going to be used for the benefit, or what percentage is going to be used and what percentage is going to be transferred to the government. Or are all these taxes simply going to be submerged into the consolidated fund, and we wouldn't hear nothing about it, and we wouldn't go back to the people? So where is it going? I would want to say, you know, if we're collecting these taxes, should we set up a special fund, a special accounting fund for these property taxes, so we know that it goes out to the region and we can know how much is being spent on each one of the particular things that we are talking about. So I'm using this example of the Kuva Tabaki Talparo Regional Corporation because it is one of the areas that has a lot of poverty, like also down in the Sipura Regional Corporation, and where the demand for dollars at this point is very high at the level of the regional corporations. I'm making, therefore, a strong case, Madam Speaker, for the taxes to stay, or a greater percentage of the taxes to stay in the regions in which the taxes are collected. That is, to me, very, very important. You cannot deal with some of the social problems unless you spend money in providing facilities for people to stay away from from the kind of life you do not want them to engage in, whether that be play fields, whether that be schools, whether that be activity centers or what have you. And I think that I'm making a very strong case in this regard on behalf of the regions. So if the taxes are collected, the taxes remain in the regions. Madam Speaker, I would really like the Minister to have his people do research on what it really, how taxes are collected and distributed in some of the more developed countries of the world. And I think he will be surprised when he sees how the taxes are distributed to the regions and what percentage remains nationally. Madam Speaker, the other matter I want to raise is the matter of the adequacy of the human resources to administer and collect the taxes. Madam Speaker, who are the evaluators? Who are the evaluators? How are these evaluators being trained? If you say you're going to implement this tax shortly, how many persons have you already trained to be evaluators, and who trained them? So that how is the citizen sure that these persons who are coming to the evaluations really are people who are competent? Sure enough, they can go and they can appeal. But you want to avoid this long process, frustrating process of the appeals. So if you can get it done right the first time, it is always going to be less frustration on the part of the citizen. I would like the Minister to also tell us, therefore, what kind of human and administrative infrastructure has been put in place. And you know, Madam Speaker, with due respect, I say that because we have to look at our track record with matters of administering laws where we need to have oversight and implementation. And we see some of the difficulties that have occurred simply because we did not train people properly and we did not have enough persons in place to do the implementation that is supposed to be done in a manner that is satisfying to the citizens. Madam Speaker, the matter of valuations, therefore, is something that is of great concern to me, the matter of valuations. How are these valuations going to be done? I understand, how we have lost taxes, Minister. I understand. Not meaning to cast any aspersion, but Alexandra Street, 2009 to 2015, $47 million paid in rental, according to the newspaper, right? And if that is the case, and you take 5% of that less 10%, you lost about $2.5 million in taxes. Yeah, so I know we are losing. Some people have benefited, not only in terms of the rents they got, but benefited also by not paying the taxes. Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the case I am making, you see, when I say I want to speak on behalf of the people, you see, every time we collect a tax and we don't use it well, the people suffer. You see, and if I go to speak about the kind of cost overruns that took place in this country, where tax money, whether we got that money by taxing profits on oil, taxing on gas and what have you. But Madam Speaker, when you have in Scarborough a hospital that doubled in price and took so long to build, right, and we collected taxes, and now we're going to collect taxes and we're not sure that that money is going to be spent efficiently, that's why I have to speak on behalf of the people. This is a people issue. This is a people issue. And let us not escape that reality. Again, $81 the minister makes out to be nothing. Nothing. It's nothing to the big man, but it's much to the small man. It's very much to the small man. You have to go out there and see the person who is working for $90 or $96 a day and understand that $81 a month takes up 1 day of his pay. Do you understand? To understand what that means. So it's misleading for the minister to focus on $81 only. and not to talk about all the other taxes that the person has to pay. The minister should tell us what is the situation with how it's going to affect large businesses, medium business, but particularly medium and small businesses, especially at a time when we have to increase entrepreneurial activity in the country.
Again, reluctantly, but oh Lord.
He said $100 is plenty money.
I'll fully stand the objection. Please move on.
Thank you. You know, on December 20th, on the Newsday of 2009, in an article written by Sean Douglas, the Honorable Prime Minister said, I know a lot of people for whom $100 is a lot of money.
What?
People are struggling to make ends meet.
Read that again.
I was the Honorable Prime Minister, in his very compassionate way, rejected claims that the property tax wouldn't cause hardship.
He said that?
This is from the Newsday. So for his minister to come now and say that $81 means nothing, you know, I rather think that the Honorable Prime Minister has a more compassionate and caring heart than the Minister of Finance at this stage, Madam Speaker.
Only $81. What is untruth? The Prime Minister did say
Members, anybody who wishes to join in the debate will be allowed an opportunity to join in the debate when their time comes. I want to hear the contribution from the member from Tabakit. Please proceed.
We want to collect seven times the amount of taxes. All right? 7 times.
Member for Tabakit, your original time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes. If you wish it, you may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, you would have read in the newspaper and you would have heard from the lips of the Honourable Minister of Finance as well as the Junior Minister of Finance that approximately $45 billion is owed in back taxes to the government. How come the government has not attempted to collect these taxes rather than go on and impose more taxes on poor people?
What? Yes. You only want subject vote clause 1.
Member for Tabakit, I uphold the objection on the basis of Standing Order 48.1. Please proceed to your next point.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you take $81 from people, when you take $81 from a poor man every month, you take it from him and you put it into your coffers, right? But way back on January 27, 2017, a year ago, and even before that, when the minister became Minister of Finance, he was talking about multinationals and transfer pricing. And the fact that they were cheating this country of millions of dollars, and I believe...
Look at him. See, only say subject vote, clause 1, clause 2.
Member, I'll allow you a little leeway, but I'm not sure where you're going with that. Just be careful. Remember what we're talking about. Talking about property tax and valuation.
Yes. You see, Madam Speaker, when these multinationals set up their transfer pricing, what they eventually do, they work it in such a way that, Madam Speaker, the government has less profits to tax in terms of the multinationals.
So we're not talking about profits and taxes on multinationals. Please continue, member, and please don't let me have to rise again on 48.1.
I'm not stretching to make any debate. I am speaking, and I stand here very vociferously, very courageously. Correct. Very courageously. The Honourable Speaker is right to correct me, and I respect that. But I want to say here today that nobody is going to shut up the Member of Parliament from Tabakit for speaking on behalf of the poor man in this country. The poor man has enough to bear in this country. Nobody is going to stop it. And if in 2009, the member for Diego Martin West could have said that $100 was important to people, what has happened in 2018? What has changed in 2018, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I have made my point here this evening. I don't have to belabor my point, but I have made my point, and the people know that I have made my point, that I have stood for what is right, and what is right is to defend the pockets of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Madam.
Member for Laventille West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I can easily understand the difficulty my friend from Tabakit experienced for the last 40 minutes or so. It is because they find themselves like the proverbial cat on a hot tin roof. They don't know what to say, but they just have to find something wrong or something bad about everything this government is trying to do in the interest of the people of this country. Imagine, Madam Speaker, the member for Tabakit, he expresses deep concern, according to him, about how do we spread the burden of the tax of which we now speak. How do we increase businesses across all the regions in this country, the 14 of them, and Tobago, in order to redistribute these taxes? Well, I simply say to my friend, it is this government that has proposed, and we are working steadfastly on reform of the local government sector.
Oh, you took it on.
No, I'm not
prevented.
I'm not.
My friend, your friend on the other side have prevented the member for Tabakit, and therefore I'm not going to allow you to go there.
I'm obliged. I was just mentioning that is how we intend to go, and he wanted to know how we would utilize the taxes that these measures will generate. Madam Speaker, he just has to look at our history, our housing program alone, our education program alone demonstrates two major ways. And he's wondering about it. Well, we have a thing in this country which he ought to know well, called a consolidated fund. When taxes are collected, they go into the consolidated fund, and that provides a simple answer to my friend from Tabakit as to what would happen with these monies. And Madam Speaker, he is very concerned about taxes and how it would affect the poor. He raised it, I'm duty-bound to respond, and how it would affect the poor. Well, there was a company in this country that earned itself $400 million more than the lowest bidder in a wastewater project in the BSM. A company called the SIS. And from the day after the elections, with those taxpayers' revenue spent, it disappeared. I'm moving on, Madam Speaker. I'm just answering. I'm just responding. Can't be found.
You shut it down.
Member, remember what this debate is about. And while you're entitled to respond, I want you to remember that certain matters weren't allowed when you're this. So please don't revive them.
I'm in motion, Madam Speaker. I'm in motion. Madam Speaker, we pledged, this government pledged in our manifesto to rationalize the tax structure and to reintroduce the property tax. Because we recognize, Madam Speaker, that very uniquely and very much to the detriment of the government and the people of this country. And when I say people, I mean even the people who say it is unfair to the country for us to own rich properties and we are not paying tax. We took a policy decision, a manifesto pledge to return to it. And this is why we are here today, Madam Speaker. This is why we are here today. The land and building taxes regime was problematic, as has been explained, and the rates varied across the country. The land was valued, it was a flat tax, as we would have heard, no valuation on land, and it was based largely on size. For these reasons and more, we decided, Madam Speaker, to implement this property tax. The background to this cannot be forgotten, and for the benefit of the citizens of this country, the Property Tax Act in 2009 and the Valuation of Land Amendment Act of 2009 were both assented to, became law by the President on the 31st of December 2009 in this country, and were expected to come into operation on the 1st of January 2010. Madam Speaker, Section 52A of the Finance Act 2015 provided for a waiver of the property tax for the period of the 1st of January 2010 to the 31st of December 2015. So there was no land the property tax was waived for that period. On the 2nd of February 2018, as a further step in the implementation process, 2 bills were introduced in the House of Representatives, the 2 bills that are now being debated here today. So, Madam Speaker, the people of the country, listening to my friend from Tabakit, must understand that it is a responsible government on this side of the House who is reintroducing measures because, as my friend from Tabakit pointed out, governments need to collect revenue in order to conduct the nation's affairs. And today, we seek to amend these 2 laws in order to give effect to them. As I indicated, Madam Speaker, there are 2 main reasons why these bills are important. As for the valuation of lands amendment, it is a forerunner to the effective collection of the property tax in the property tax regime. And it also aids to fix accurate values to land for that purpose, the paying of the tax, and of course for other purposes. Land is the basis of all wealth, as we all know. In fact, people have fought for and died upon it. And of course, as we have already agreed, people hide and launder money through land, businesses, cash, and other monetary instruments. Taxes are paid on property to states everywhere in the world. But in Trinidad and Tobago, because of the conduct and the philosophy of axe the tax on the part of the last government in their populist approach, that was not done uniquely in Trinidad and Tobago. I call in aid a comment well recorded around the world by Oliver Wendell Holmes, a former U.S. Supreme Court judge, speaking on the business of taxes. And I quote, he said, "Taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. Programs providing health, education, infrastructure, and other amenities, in our case like GATE, are important to achieve the common goal of a civilized society, a prosperous and functional and orderly society. All of these require the government to raise taxes. Taxes, he says, is a key ingredient in the social contract." The member for Tabakit was telling us a moment ago, and I'm not belaboring the point, but he was telling us a moment ago in this house that there are tensions in the society and there's a whole lot of anger and so on. It is collecting taxes and meeting public goods and services that keeps the social contract in order. It is the key to it. And that is why we are here today. And you would notice, Madam Speaker, my friend from Chaguanas West, before we got off the ground today, he representing the thinking and the philosophy of the UNC, got up here in obstructionist mode to tell us about sub judice, and you had to rule upon it.
Please, don't go down that road. Please continue.
All in an attempt. And when you reflect on the Hansard, in the debates in 2009, in the month of December and early January 2010, you would see, I mean, for example, Madam Speaker, I'm making reference. The now Senator Wade Mark, back on the Tuesday, the 29th of December 2009, representing the UNC in full flight in the Senate, in response to these measures, said, and I'm quoting from Hansard of that day, and I'm quoting him, "The Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Trade and Industry spent less than 15 minutes to introduce a measure," and hear the words, "that will cripple house owners." You hear the strong language? That was the UNC in 2009. "That will cripple house owners and business owners and impact negatively on people who own shacks in this land. This measure," he continued, "as far as we are concerned, is unconstitutional, undemocratic, and anti-working class and anti-working people." That is the kind of language that they muster in order to object to these sound measures, to maintain social cohesion, and to provide all the goods and services that a government must to keep the people of the country alive and going, and they raise objection to it. Madam Speaker, in 2009, the very member for Siparia speaking on the same measures, and I wouldn't bother to waste your time quoting her, but I should paraphrase. She said that this tax will pauperize the citizens. But the Minister of Finance, before he took his seat a while ago, told us, and you see, the measures that we have before you for this tax is based on an annual rentable value, an assumed rental value which is to be determined by the Commissioner of Valuations. And the member for Diego Martin Northeast, the Minister of Finance, a moment ago told us, and they didn't want to hear it, on a property where the annual rental value is $36,000 a year or $3,000 a month, the property tax will be $81 per month. So if you have a property and you can earn $3,000 in monthly rent upon it, all you will be required to give this state, one of the least anywhere in this hemisphere, is $81 a month. And then that's $2.60 a day. And then the member for Tabakit, on behalf of the UNC, gets up here to tell us that there are people, the large majority, 75% of the people, he said, the workforce, earn $6,000 or less a month, implying that each of these persons will have to pay $81 more per month, and $100 means so much to them. That is not the truth. It is the home owner who is expected to pay $81 a month. And in fact, for that person earning less than $6,000 a month, 2 years ago in a budget presentation here, we took that to $7,200 a month. They pay absolutely no tax, no PAYE, none. So, Madam Speaker, you see how disingenuous my colleagues on the other side could be. The member for Siparia, as I was telling you, claiming that this tax will pauperize people. Yes, so she has changed her tongue. She's saying she's not saying so today. The member for Siparia.
Please direct your contribution this way. Please continue.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. The member for Siparia is now terrorizing me, but I'll tell you why I said that.
Can I actively do that?
The member for Siparia is on Hansard as describing the property tax in 2009 as state terrorism. Economic terrorism. I read it. It's right here. That is the language that they muster in order to fool the people in this country. But they won't do it. They didn't do it in 2015, and they won't do it in 2020. It leaks like fire when that time comes. Because we are doing the right thing, and the country knows. The property owners know. Those who own industrial property, residential properties, commercial properties, or land, they know in their hearts, they are willing. As a matter of fact, I might happily tell you, Madam Speaker, over 150,000 people have already submitted their returns to line up to deal with this property tax. Notwithstanding legal challenge, and I'm not dealing with it, notwithstanding their obstructionist posture, 150,000 people have, and I note a provision in this bill, in their thinking, they had their mouthpieces carry a strong argument, as the Minister of Finance told you, that you must have 100% of the properties in the country valued by the Commissioner of State Lands before you could implement this tax. An impossible task. The Commissioner of Valuations, impossible, because as has been simply and logically pointed out, every single day new properties are being developed in this country, and it would be impossible to have all before you start. So the bill before you wisely provides that once 50% of the properties in the country are valued in that way, then you can kick in the property tax and it gets to work. But for the obstructionists, they will want to set the impossible bar of 100%, and therefore it has to be rejected. And it's not the only thing they oppose. They oppose everything they oppose. They oppose everything that is good. They oppose everything that is good for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As I was telling you, Madam Speaker, people out there are saying that the land and building taxes was not fairly operated. They are saying they want to pay this tax. They identify that there is no relation between the cost of property and the value of land under the land and building taxes, and therefore it behoves of us to improve things. Since 2010, we lost over $1 billion in revenue in this country because of the conduct of the last government. Ask the tax was their mantra. They put an end to the land and building taxes. They put the Property Tax Act in abeyance. And as a result, this country lost $1 billion in revenues. And I'll tell you this, when you hear the member for Tabakit speaking on behalf of the UNC, concerned about what we will do with taxes, well, left up to them, we'll have none. Left up to them, we'll have none. Especially in circumstances where national revenues are down, public debt is up, and corruption was rampant in the last 5 years, things are economically bad. And the government needs revenues in order to continue its work. So, Madam Speaker, Clause 11, if I may just deal with a few of them, although I think some of them have already been dealt with. Clause 11. Amends Section 19 of the existing law. And, Madam Speaker, in Clause 11, B, this bill seeks to insert after paragraph D the following new paragraphs. That the annual, E, it says the annual rental value of any land appearing in the valuation roll is incorrect or unfair having regard. It allows an objection to be filed. And the reason why I'm focusing on this, provision is because it allows for due process. If someone has an objection to the valuation, it is here they will find solace. It allows them to object. Madam Speaker.
I usually don't have a difficulty hearing the member for Laventille West. I'm certainly being challenged at this time. Please continue, member for Laventille West.
Thoughtlessness of the UNC on the other side, but I should survive. Yes, I should survive. That's how they react to the truth. They don't want to hear it. As a matter of fact, they want to leave and go home now. Madam Speaker, if someone holds the view that the land, for example, if it is exempt and it ought not to have been included in the valuation roll, they have an opportunity to object as well. They could object on the ground that the land omitted from the valuation, that land omitted from the roll ought to be included therein. That land included in a series of or complex of land units as a single land on the valuation roll should be listed separately on the valuation roll or omitted therefrom. That land separately in or omitted from the valuation roll should be combined with one or more of a series or complex of land units as listed as a single unit of land, and that the valuation roll is incorrect in some other material particular. Madam Speaker, all of these allow the citizens who are going to be affected by these measures to seek redress or corrective action short of the expense and the time and the trouble of going to court. I even heard the member for Tabakit raise concerns about the power of the minister to remove one of the valuation commissioners and expressing this unfounded fear that the minister may act whimsically. Even so, the principles of natural justice must always apply. And when the minister as a public official is acting or fails to act, all that he does is amenable to the laws of judicial review, and of course it is subject to the rules of natural justice. So the scaremongering on the part of the UNC, falling through the lips of the member for Tabakit, loudly supported and applauded by the member for Siparia, we understand it is all designed to create smoke screens and to create doubts in the citizens of this country, when in fact it is a responsible government coming in after 5 years. And 2 years we are now in government plus, and we had to fight through the courts and in other ways to be here today. But we will always do this, the best thing and the most noble things in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we do so without fear, and we do so without apology. And we call on the citizens of this country to discontinue, to pay no heed to the UNC. To ignore them, Madam Speaker, put in simple language, to ignore them and their seagullism. Yes, ignore them so that we can get it. So as I said, clause 15 as well, a new section 25A, allowing due process. And of course, a new section 25G, which outlines the functions of the tribunal. All of this in an effort to pass, as they call it sometimes, we know it to be good law, so that the people of this country will benefit therefrom. And there was some mention some time ago and a comparison with the poll tax. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say for the benefit of the citizens of this country that that poll tax, well, the word poll was used to mean... I know, you're not raising it now. The member for Siparia raised it. In the debate in 2009.
Break your contribution this way. Member for Laventille West, please direct your contribution this way.
Obliged, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. Ours is very much different to the poll tax, which was a head tax. Poll meaning poll, a head tax. Actually, it meant that. Regardless of one's status, regardless of one's income, regardless of the number of people in a particular household, there was a tax for applied to each of them. It was a poll tax. And of course, the way their system was structured, the local government authorities having to raise their own taxes for the most part to finance issues in their local government authorities, they were prepared to raise these taxes. And that created problems. Ours, these proposals here are significantly different. This is a progressive tax, meaning it is based on the annual rentable value of the land. So the greater the value of the land, the more tax you pay. And by corollary, the lesser the value of the land, the less tax you pay. And that is what equity and good sense in our circumstances is all about. And again, I remind those who would listen to us that by way of an example, all of this that would mash up businesses and mash up households and destroy citizens and estate terrorism, all of that comes to naught in the face of the fact that by way of an example, on a 3,000 annual rental property, we will pay, or the homeowner, the owner of the property will pay only $81 per month. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to, as I approach my own conclusion in support of this, I would like to say I give full support to these measures as offered to this House by the member for Dago Martin Northeast. Full support. I am confident that the people of Trinidad and Tobago would have seen in the last 2 years and a few months that this government, their treasury, their central bank, their public accounts are in safe hands in the government of the PNM, very safe hands. I can raise my hand today and boast. Today, not one single credible challenge could be put against any member of the government for using their formal office for any personal benefit or gain. None. I am.
I remind you, Standing Order 48-1.
Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, I was coming to my own conclusion in support of this. And I was saying, Madam Speaker, that in the last budget presentation, we would have heard about revenues estimated to be about 35 billion, expenditure brought from 64 billion down to $50 billion, efforts to rationalize the economy and balance the books, as it were, with great difficulty. We see this measure not only as a tax-raising measure, which it naturally is, but it is also fixing, if I may use a well-popular, I regret to use it, it is making Trinidad and Tobago better. We had a failure in 2009. We put these laws on the books, and we were not able to give effect to them. All manners of manipulation took place, and objection, including the use of the court. But today, Madam Speaker, we are here without all of those problems in front of us, and we seek the support of our friends on the other side for the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. And I thank you, Madam Speaker, for my contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to an act to amend the Property Tax Act, Chapter 7604, together with an act to amend the Valuation of Land Act, Chapter 5803. Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West spent a considerable amount of time in his contribution dealing with the Hansard with respect to the presentation by the member for Siparia in the year 2009, together with then and now Senator Wade Mark. Madam Speaker, we heard and we saw a big song and dance. But Madam Speaker, the proof is really in the details and in the pudding, as they would say. You see, Madam Speaker, the honourable member for Laventille West had much to say about nothing. And Madam Speaker, let us look at the points that the honourable member for Laventille West made with respect to the Hansard for the member for Siparia. You know, Madam Speaker, I thought it was passing strange. I sometimes wonder whether members do not read not only on the opposition side, but also their own government members. You see, Madam Speaker, there was a time when they all did not sing from the same hymn book. Madam Speaker, I turn to the Hansard of December 18, 2009 on the property tax bill, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I am reminded of the words of the Honourable Member for Diego Martin Northeast. Madam Speaker, and I quote, the member for Diego Martin Northeast had this to say, and I quote, there are many people in this country who are struggling to make ends meet. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the absence of the Honourable Prime Minister who's leaving, it is also interesting to see what the Honourable Prime Minister had to say. Madam Speaker, when I look at the words for the member for Diego Martin Northeast, it totally contradicted the presentation made by then and now Prime Minister, member for Diego Martin West. And this is what the Honourable member for Diego Martin Northeast had to say. And I quote, he came into the debate and made the argument that was repeated by the member for Siparia. It was a regurgitation that we run out of money. Madam Speaker, the Honourable member for Diego Martin Northeast went on to say, that kind of speech I got from my colleague. It is the speech of an opposition politician bereft of logic, bereft of fact, populist and playing to the gallery. It is a Kamla's speech. It was just said with more passion. Now, that is hard to believe. But, Madam Speaker, it goes on to say, the member for Diego Martin Northeast, my colleague is a very passionate man. He has always been a very good speaker and a good orator. He speaks with a lot of strength in his voice, but when you look at the words, they do not make sense. They sound like Kamla's regurgitation. The member for Diego Martin Northeast, then singing for his supper in the Manning administration, now today comes to the Parliament and changes his tune to sing for his supper for the member for Diego Martin West. Madam Speaker, that is a hypocrisy that we on this side will not accept. Madam Speaker, it is very interesting when the member for Laventille West went on an entire tirade of what Senator Wade Mark had to say. He said that Senator Wade Mark objected to sound measures. Member for Laventille West. The member for Diego Martin Northeast, while he agreed with the property tax then, the member for Diego Martin West had this to say. Now, Prime Minister, and I quote, my colleague from Tobago East mentioned the people in the House who had done nothing, and the value could be assessed at 1 million, 2 million, Mr. Speaker. I do not know about you. I know many people in this country for whom 100 is much money. What? There are many people in this country who are struggling to make ends meet, and such faced with an increase, whether 200, 500, or 600, they are living at the margin. I want to make this point, Madam Speaker. This is what the member for Diego Martin West had to say in the Hansard. Any increase for them is hardship. It is not, I should not say a right because it is not right and wrong. It is not correct to say that nobody would feel a hardship as a result. There would be hardships. This is a member for Diego Martin West, then fired from the Manning cabinet, speaking out against the property tax. Today, supports the Minister of Finance by bringing this as a revenue-generating measure for the government. Madam Speaker, I want to turn to the words of the Honourable Prime Minister, then as having been fired from the Manning cabinet just as an ordinary member of the government without ministerial portfolio. And speaking against the property tax in the Parliament on that day, this is what the Honourable Member for Diego Martin West, now Prime Minister, had to say in 2009. The Prime Minister then had to say, if you try to defend the indefensible, you will create resentment and provoke people, and that is what we have at the moment. And that is what the point the member for Tabakit tried to point out, Madam Speaker. That is the resentment that the member for Diego Martin West was advocating that the people of Trinidad and Tobago has with respect to this property tax. But today, the member has suddenly changed his tune. Madam Speaker, when you look at the DNA, and I'm happy that the member for Laventille West took paternity of the Property Tax Act as well as this amendment that they have brought before the House. When you look at the DNA of this oppressive piece of legislation, Madam Speaker, we must look at it in the context of which we find ourselves in 2018 in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, Madam Speaker, I am reminded of the words of then Prime Minister Patrick Manning, member then as he was for San Fernando East. Madam Speaker, the honourable member at that time was not only the Prime Minister in 2006, he also served as the Minister of Finance. And in presenting the budget presentation of 2006, the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Mr. Patrick Manning then, Madam Speaker, he said and he described that the property tax measure that was being imposed by his government, the People's National Movement government, he described it as a love thing. He said you had to have love for your country and that you had to pay your taxes because it was a love thing with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, Madam Speaker, I know that the International Soca Monarch Voice has dubbed this year as a year for love. But I'm also reminded what the member for Siparia in 2006 had to say in response to then Prime Minister Patrick Manning. She said, and I quote, "You cannot make love on hungry belly." And Madam Speaker, that is the context in which we find ourselves today. Madam Speaker, we find ourselves with declining GDP.
Member for Princestown.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Speaker, the context in which we find ourselves with respect to the Property Tax Amendment Bill today, together with the Land Valuation Amendment Bill, is one in which we have seen significant declines in our GDP over the past 2.5 years. We have seen massive job loss, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have seen lack of foreign direct investment. We have seen oil and gas productions plummeting. We have seen transnational companies downsizing. We have seen business closures. Industrial relations in Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, is a very hot topic.
Madam Speaker, standing order 48-1, please.
Please continue.
That in the context of which we find ourselves in with respect to the two bills that is before the Parliament today. You see, Madam Speaker, this has created a sense of uneasiness in the population, who, as a member for Tabaki spoke about, is not sensitized with respect to the expertise in terms of dissecting, really, what this means to the average man and average woman. Madam Speaker, recently, many of my colleagues had the opportunity to visit India. And I would like to quote a line from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he said, "In order to transform, we must reform." But the only reform that this government is concerned about is tax reform, which means tax, tax, tax. There are no sustainable measures being put in place, Madam Speaker. It is only property tax, online tax, shopping tax, tax at the pump. You know, Madam Speaker, when you talk about $81, $81 is only an example when it comes to the property tax. There's a slew of other taxes that will affect the pockets of the everyday man and woman in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, some people, I will not say, but I've heard others in the society describe it as government pickpocketing the pockets of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
No, you would not say. You have said it. So you have to take responsibility. Okay? It's yours. It is what you said here. Okay? So that I'm certain, member for Princestown, you could withdraw that and say that in another way. Okay, please.
Thank you, Madam. Madam is withdrawn. Madam, I know that there has been considerable amount of talk with respect to the actual clauses in the bill. And on the onset, I would like to say which clauses I'm particularly disturbed about with respect to the Land Valuation Act, and that has to do with clauses 14 and 15. With respect to the Property Tax Amendment Bill 2018, I'm particularly concerned about clauses 3, 6, 7, 15, and 23, and I'll go into my presentation to demonstrate which particular areas that we in the opposition are particularly concerned about. And, Madam, let me also say this on the onset. We are not opposed to citizens paying taxes in this country, but we cannot support this bill in the current form that it has found itself in. And should the government be willing to address some of the matters that we have raised, and in particular, when you look at several other jurisdictions that share the same jurisprudence with us, particularly with the legislation in Jamaica, Barbados, Canada, South Africa, India, and Ireland, Madam Speaker, you will see that there are many loopholes. And it really, Madam, is almost as though, and I would not like to use the word laziness, but I am deeply concerned that there are several loopholes in this legislation that we are seeing in these two bills that could have easily been addressed had someone done their homework in the Office of the Attorney General and in the Office of the Ministry of Finance. If you would have looked at how some of these oppressive measures were dealt with in other jurisdictions, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to look at clause number 3, and it looks at the assessment and how it would be conducted with respect to townhouses, condominiums, multi-owner commercial accommodations. Now, Madam Speaker, when you dissect that and you look at the provisions in the bill, Madam Speaker, you may be surprised to learn that in one property or one, what you call an estate, where you have several townhouses and condominiums, Madam Speaker, it is counted as separate entities when the tax is being administered. Madam Speaker, in other jurisdictions, this will not be accepted. I will go on in my presentation to show how that we could have relieved the burden from those who have to pay the tax, whether it is a proprietor, the person who is occupying, or the actual owners. Madam Speaker, when you look at Clause 6, it deals with those that are exempted. And I know the member for Diego Martin Northeast spoke about a few of the exemptions. But again, Madam Speaker, had the member done his homework in terms of looking at the other jurisdictions, in particular if you looked at Jamaica. Do you know, Madam Speaker, in Jamaica, in 2017, when they came with their amendment bill, because of the lack of public support, there had to be significant changes being done in Jamaica to reflect the views of the citizens of Jamaica because of the exemptions, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you look at India as well, India has certain provinces and states where they do not apply property tax to rural areas, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, these exemptions do not only look just at whether or not you are able to pay it from a financial point of view, but it also looks at the areas where it comes to rental properties, industrial equipment, and agricultural lands, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've heard a big song and dance continuously from this administration with respect to agriculture. And Madam Speaker, when you look at the breakdown in terms of administering the property tax, you see that agriculture, even though at 1%, you see the residential rate at 3%, you see commercial at 5%, industrial with building at 6%, industrial with building at 3%, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to ask the government today, and I'm saddened that the Prime Minister is not in the House, because the Prime Minister spent a considerable amount of time at a public meeting discussing agriculture. And I want to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, are you willing to put your mouth where your money is? Are you willing to remove property tax on agriculture, agricultural land? Are you willing to put your mouth where your money, where your mouth is, with respect to removing property tax on industrial equipment when it comes to agriculture? Madam Speaker, you cannot be speaking from both sides of your mouth. It's either you are in or you are out. I know the member from Diego Martin West spends a lot more time out than in, but Madam Speaker, I would hope that someone from the government will address the issue with respect to agriculture if you are serious. This is the same government that shut down Carney 1975 Limited. I remember when the member from Hoover North spoke. The member spoke about the issues that we are facing with respect to the citrus industry, the issues that we are enduring with respect to the buffalo as well, Madam Speaker. And it has been a deafening silence, and this has to do with the agricultural part of the property tax,
so
Madam.
I'm not going to allow you going to talk about Carney and buffalo and so on. You can continue with respect to the point you were making about a reduction or removal as relates to the Act, the bill.
Yes, Madam. Madam, again, it has to do with the provisions contained in the parent law, Madam Speaker. Today, yes, we are dealing with the amendment. But, Madam Speaker, again, these are issues that must be addressed. And this could only be addressed by those who are bringing forward this legislation to the Parliament today, Madam Speaker. And it is in that context that I'm asking those questions. Madam Speaker, I also want to look at the issue. I know that this has been a considerable, painstaking issue that has been raised by several members. I know the member for Sipari and another incarnation had also raised this particular issue, Madam. And it has to do with Section 15 of the Valuation of Land Act of 1969. And it spoke, Madam Speaker, about the officers who will be able to inspect the premises. And I know that the member for Diego Martin Northeast has been involved in training officers who will assist in the collection. At one point, he said he would hire an army of tax collectors. He seems very anxious at this point to utilize this army of tax collectors, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, we have heard very little in terms of the concerns that have been raised with respect to Section 15.1, which is subject to the subsection 2, the commissioner or any officer authorized by the commissioner in writing for that purpose, when it comes to shall for the purpose of ascertaining the value of any land, have power to enter at all reasonable hours during the daylight in or upon any land without being liable to any legal proceedings. I know. And that is the point, Honourable Minister. It does not reflect the realities that exist in Trinidad and Tobago when crime has seen over 1,000 murders in this country. Mr. Deputy, Madam Speaker, sorry. Also, I know the Honourable Minister dealt with the issue of the challenges with respect to the valuation, and I will go into that when we look at the Land Valuation Act with respect to the repeal of the Tax Appeal Board and the institution of the Valuation Tribunal, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister have indicated that now the 30 days will be removed and we will now see the introduction of 21 days to lodge a complaint and so on. Madam Speaker, there are several issues that are involved in that particular matter. One, it has to do with the values assessed, whether it's how high or how low. The lands which should be included in one valuation have been valued separately. C, that lands which should be valued separately have been included in one valuation. And D, the person's name in the notice is not the owner of the land. Madam Speaker, we have also seen in the past where government had provided us with several dates. I know you have ruled on that particular issue with regards to the matter before the court, and I will not go into that, Madam Speaker, except to say that we have seen a deceit from this government where they have provided dates in the public domain, Madam Speaker, with respect to providing a fear in the minds and hearts of the population in terms of the...
Standing Order 47 on
49.
Madam, I will move on from that point. It seems that the AG is getting hot on the collar with respect to that. But, Madam Speaker, I want to also deal in the context of the Property Tax Amendment Bill 2018, and the Valuation Act of 2018, the issue of a bureau with respect to registering properties that are rental properties. Madam Speaker, if you look at Scotland and you look at the United Kingdom, there are several areas in Scotland and the United Kingdom. I encourage the member for San Fernando West and maybe the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West could assist in this regard and give some work to do to the member for Laventille West as well. When you look at Scotland and you look at the United Kingdom, Madam Speaker, they have, I'll provide you the information subsequently in my notes, but Madam Speaker, in Scotland and the United Kingdom, what they have established for several years is a bureau registry. And the legislation as it stands that is put forward before us, Madam, it tells us that if you have rental properties, that you are still required to pay property tax if it is unoccupied. Madam, when you look at the Scotland model and you look at the UK model, you would see that there is a bureau registry that you are allowed to file as a, not as an occupier, but as a proprietor, properties that you have interest in, financial interest in, that are not occupied or rented at any particular time, and also equipment that is not being used. Yes, you are required, Madam, to swear an affidavit and so on, but you are also required to register. And therefore, in the current economic climate that we find ourselves in, Madam Speaker, I am suggesting that we look at this particular model. Madam, also, if you go back and you look at the South African model with respect to the legislation, and that is why I'm really saddened that members did not do their homework. It is as though you just took the 2017 amendment and you just brought it in 2018. Yeah. Madam Speaker, there has been no real tangible effort on the part of the government to look at alternative ways of relieving the stress of the population of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam, I turn to the area of commercial properties. And, Madam Speaker, if you look at the business, the express business of February 21st, 2018, it headlined, "Feeling the Pinch." And, Madam, if I am allowed to read an excerpt from that, you would get a clear idea of what is happening with commercial properties in Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. And, Madam Speaker, it is entitled, "Everybody is Hunkering Down," and I quote, "Like many other industries in Trinidad and Tobago, the real estate sector thrives in good economic times. Businesses expand as their customer base increases, boosting the demand for commercial and industrial spaces. The opposite occurs when the economy nosedives. Some businesses reduce staff, resulting in them scaling back on office spaces. Vice President of the Association of Real Estate Agents, Mark Edgell, says, the current economic downturn has had the biggest impact on the expat rental market and the commercial rental market. Demand has been significantly lower, he told Express Business last week. I can safely say that there has been around 40 to 50% decline in expat demand as well as commercial demand. Particularly in the commercial industry, we are not seeing any businesses looking to expand or relocate. Everyone is hunkering down to weather the economic difficulties, so you are not seeing a huge commercial rental space being taken like it would have been 3 to 4 years ago, he highlighted. Madam, the article goes on to say, and I quote, he said to help them weather the economic storm, landlords will rather reduce their rent than lose a tenant, as it is difficult to find a replacement in the current climate. We have heard of some of the oil companies that have given up office space and have downsized, but it has not been a large-scale trend. Madam, he goes on to say that, and he speaks about TSCT shutting down several of its companies, indicating, again, that the economy is on a downward slide. Madam, in this article, it quotes the Chief Executive Officer of Massey Realty, Sharon Inglefield, who said, and I quote, the company has seen a lot more commercial office space on the market for lease, and owners of rental property have had to reduce their asking price by as much as 20 to 30% to attract good tenants. We have been advising our clients the current market conditions based on market comparables to ensure that they make educated decisions on their investments, she said. Inglefield said the current economic downturn has negatively affected Massey Realty in particular, but the company has been trying its best to provide a better service and continually revisit its process to ensure it remains profitable. However, in an unregulated market with over 2,500 real estate brokers in Trinidad and Tobago, it is difficult, Inglefield pointed out. Certainly, the current economic downturn has affected Massey Realty negatively due to the fact that our economy is based on the petrochemical industry. What has also negatively affected us is the uneven playing field due to the fact that a number of real estate practitioners continue to rent and sell real estate without conducting due diligence as well as due care and attention to the laws of our land, particularly the anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism.
I'm not going to allow you to read the entire article.
Sure, Madam.
I think you were reading excerpts to support a
Yes.
point. So please continue with your point.
Madam, I will move on from that, except to say that in the same article, the president of DOMA, the Downtown Owners and Merchants Association, Gregory Abood, Madam, we will know, again, the Prime Minister has referred to many of these cloth persons, and they too are involved in the business of textiles. Madam Speaker, representing DOMA, Gregory Abood had this to say, that downtown Port of Spain are facing the same challenges with respect to commercial properties, having substantial issues with respect to getting their properties rented. And Madam, when we look at that in the context of the Property Tax Act and the Amendment Bill of 2018, it tells the story of how this property tax will further exacerbate the problems affecting the business sector in Trinidad and Tobago. And Madam Speaker, this is one of the areas, this Property Tax Act, that will affect the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago because of the taxes that will be imposed on properties, on commercial properties, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, I remember under the member for Siparia in 2014, Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the business, doing ease of business ranking, was at number 66. Madam Speaker, today, under the Minister of Trade and Industry and the Prime Minister, Diego Martin West, Dr. Keith Rowley, we have gone down to position 102. Madam Speaker, could you imagine that if this affects the commercial property sector in Trinidad and Tobago, what is going to happen to small businesses and what are going to happen to medium-sized businesses? Yes, Madam Speaker, from 66, the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago, and could be easily verified on the ministry's website themselves, showing that we have moved from position 66 under Kamla Prasad administration member for Siparia to number 102 under Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. Madam Speaker, again, I am hoping that the Honourable Member for Diego Martin Northeast, together with the Member for San Fernando West, will be able to assist in establishing a registry that will regulate rental properties, not only for commercial properties, Madam Speaker, but also for residential properties. I know the member for San Fernando West has been speaking about this for a very long time. We haven't seen anything coming forward. But it must be a comprehensive plan that is an alternative, to this property tax, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would also like to turn to the issue of the Jamaican legislation. And I know the member for San Fernando West has a particular interest. He likes to quote from several other jurisdictions. And it is always helpful when we get an idea of what our Commonwealth and CARICOM partners are doing. But as I said, Madam Speaker, in Jamaica, they actually listened to their population when their population was saying that these rates were too high, that they did not accept these rates that were coming forward with respect to the property tax. Madam Speaker, do you know in Canada as well, in their budget presentation of 2018, the Canadian Parliament took steps, Madam Speaker, to reduce their property tax, Madam Speaker, because it was affecting small and medium businesses. That is what is happening in the Parliament of Canada, Madam Speaker. But again, who has done their homework? But Madam Speaker, I have done my homework, so I will share with the member for San Fernando West. You see, Madam Speaker, on March 13th, almost 1 year ago, this is what the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, the Honourable Audley Shaw, had to say in the Jamaican Parliament, and I quote, Minister of Finance and Public Service, Audley Shaw, announced that a new property tax regime will be adopted. The Honourable Minister said, in other words, a valuation was done in 2013 and property taxes have not been adjusted since then to take account of that valuation. While we reduce the rate, we will broaden the taxable base by increasing the number of bands from 3 to 9 under the new regime. The Honourable Minister went on to speak about how many property owners here in Jamaica, 210,512, will actually be paying less property tax, Madam.
Original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes. Might I ask an idea of if you're going to... Full? Okay, so might I then therefore suggest to members that now is a convenient time that we take the suspension. This House is now suspended. We shall resume at 5 p.m.